Hi, this is Roger Moore, and you're listening to James Bond Radio.
Hello, and welcome to podcast number 134, License to Kill Review, Part 2. My name is Tom Sears, and I'm joined, as usual, by my brother from another mother, Mr. Chris Wright. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing very well, Tom. I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm very well, man. I'm excited to crack on with the License to Kill coverage. I've watched it a couple of times now since we started the review last time, and I've been going through the special features and all that kind of business. I'm ready to rock and roll on it.
Nice.
I think the more, as it typically happens, actually, the more you kind of go through these films and like study them and like think about things and see what was going on behind the scenes and all that kind of shenanigans. I get more interested in it as well as time goes on. So it's going to be good to go through it bit by bit.
Definitely. I like it. Like sometimes if you're not sure what Bond film to watch, all you have to do is sort of listen to a soundtrack or watch a little documentary and whatever film that's based on, suddenly like, yes, that's the one I want to watch.
Yeah,
and you stick it on. I love the way that it sort of triggers that. But speaking of special features, now there was something we mentioned in last week's podcast about the whole sort of whipping scene with Sanchez. And having watched the special features, you said that Robert Davi kind of mentioned that in one of his interviews.
Yeah, we were saying, weren't we, how what a dark beginning that is for Sanchez. Like when you think of all the previous Bond films, and the villains are generally nasty bastards, but Sanchez comes in and he's particularly dark and nasty, and he gets that gun out with the little whip on, doesn't he? And he just starts whipping Lupe right there, and what like a nasty sort of hard-edged scene that is. And we mentioned, didn't we, how, in a post 50 Shades of Grey world, I wonder how that would have been kind of looked at the time. And as I'm watching the special features, Robert Davi was saying that, he went into that scene as you would, thinking, right, this is a nasty thing to do, blah, blah, blah. And then he ended up getting loads of fan mail from loads of kinky buggers saying that they really enjoyed the whipping sequence.
How did you find his address then?
Oh, he's only gone and done it straight away. Look at that. 3 minutes in and he's got me.
That's pretty cool though, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But there's all sorts out there, absolutely. So before we crack on then, come and check us out on the old social medias, all of them. Just stick it in the box. James Bond Radio, you'll find us. Except Snapchat, that's the only one.
Maybe, are we going to do that?
I don't know. I've heard Snapchat's kind of like dying a sort of slow death.
There we go.
So there's not much point in doing that. Right. But at the very least, if you haven't yet, come and follow us on Instagram. Good old B-Dobs is running that for us, posting some wonderful Bond snaps every day. So you'll find us on there, James Bond Podcast. Stick that in the box. Good stuff. Obviously, there's jamesbondradio.com as well. Some rather wonderful blog posts courtesy of Jack Lugo and friends over there. You can come and read those and obviously leave some comments and engage in the chat. And then obviously there's the donate link over there as well if you want to help keep the good ship JBR afloat. Always appreciated, never expected. Now, before we crack on with a bit of LTK, I suppose I've got a question for you. How are you finding this new weekly format, Chris? Are you like, obviously we're doing some kind of shorter episodes. Usually they'd be like 3-4 hours long. And we thought, you know what, we're going to go weekly. We're going to streamline things a little bit. So it's, shorter episodes, more concise, but more often. How are you feeling so far?
I like it actually. Yeah, I think it's an interesting way for the audience to sort of, well, I think having one every week is good, isn't it? I think that's sort of the best thing. And I know if people wanted to block listen to a whole review, they might have to wait for all three episodes to come out in terms of like a movie review. But I like it. I think it's a better way to do it. I think although they're not as long, I think, you can engage with people every week, then they don't have to miss out, do they? So,
absolutely.
I'm enjoying it.
We'll obviously we'll do it for a while, see how the JBR family feel about it, see if let them speak and see how we move forward in the future. But yeah, I'm digging the weekly action. It's good. It's nice. Coolio. So before we crack on with the review, then we have a listener trivia question, don't we, Chris? Who's it from?
Okay, so the listener trivia question this week is from Marlena Orth. So should we have a listen to Marlena's question?
Let's do it.
Hello, everyone. It's Marlena again from Station M Munich. I'm calling in with the listener trivia question today. I've always really liked the poster from Octopussy, where you see Maud Adams standing behind Roger and her 8 arms are doing all sorts of things. Now I'm wondering, can you recall from memory what all of her 8 hands are doing? That is, on the Octopussy poster, can you recall what Octopussy's 8 hands are all doing?
Okay, lovely to hear from Marlena. Now, Marlena sounds very chirpy as usual. She's obviously called in before, and always we remark on how chirpy she sounds, don't we? She sounds like a very happy and chirpy human being. It's nice to hear from you.
Well, that's what we like, yeah. And thanks for sending it in, Marlena. And what a question as well. That's really got me thinking. I definitely know some of them that have jumped in my head straight away, but to get all 8. That's going to be. I think we're going to have to do a bit of working together, you and I, on this one, and just see if we can see what we can do.
What makes it even more of a thing is that obviously over on the JBL website, our kind of like header logo is you with your face pasted over Sir Roger with her arms all around you. So I see that image more often than one might think. And do you know what? I can't think of a single one. I can't.
Yes, you can. You got to think of a single one.
I mean, I see that most. All right. I'll have to have a think about it.
Yeah.
But, we'll obviously find out the answer to that later in today's episode. So, shall we crack on? Have a bit of theme tune and get cracking with some Timmy D.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Who are you?
My name's Bond. James Bond.
Bond.
James.
Bond, what do you think you're doing?
Keeping the British hand up, sir.
Welcome to James Bond Radio. News, reviews, and discussion of all things 007.
Pussy. As you can see, I have no problem with female authority.
Oh, pipe down, 007.
Do you expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to buy.
Okay, Crispy Pants, where did we leave 007 last time?
So the last time, Mr. Timmy D had a massive smile on his face. He was in that little aeroplane, having just banked $4.9 million, and he looked rather pleased with himself. That was the last time we saw him. So we open up on Bond going to Felix's place. So this is after the police have been there, and he goes through the sort of tape, and sneaks his way in, and he obviously remembers, the picture of Della and the sort of CD thing that's in the back of it. So he obviously knows it's important, and you see obviously Lighter's place has been turned over, but he turns on the computer, checks it out. So he's got the list of all Lighter's contacts, and it's like deceased, 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 active. And then he has a look, and it's P. Bouvier, and he obviously met her briefly, didn't he, at the wedding sort of party. But again, it's a bit sneaky, isn't it? I quite like this sort of scene.
Yeah, do you know what? I'd kind of forgotten just quite how much sneaky Bond there is in License to Kill, actually. Obviously, we talked about the scene where he sneaks aboard the Wave Crest last time.
That's great.
Which I love that sequence. That's great. And there's an awful lot of sneaky bondage. And especially when you get later into the film as well, when he's kind of like undercover and sneaking in and out of Sanchez's gaff. It's, there's a lot to be had there. So good stuff. Absolutely. So now what this gives us the opportunity to talk about, Chris, is one of the greatest Bond songs, I would say, that's not a theme song, which is, of course, Dirty Love, playing in the background of the Barrelhead Bar, Bimini. Are you a fan of Dirty Love?
I'm definitely a fan of Dirty Love. I think it suits the scene incredibly well as the pole dancing lady that we have in there and stuff like that.
Now, I tell you what, this sequence, I'll jump ahead a little bit. Obviously, it devolves into a good old-fashioned 80s barroom brawl, this one, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Now, this feels like... Did you ever see the movie Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze?
Oh, ages ago. Ages and ages ago.
It basically, it's a 2-hour film of just that, basically, just barroom brawls. And I feel like I need a mulleted Patrick Swayze to walk in and do a couple of roundhouse kicks in this sequence. It just would feel right, you know?
Yeah, and particularly with the sort of setting, with this sort of sleazy bar and everything like that, I think it'd be perfect for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it's kind of like, it's quite cool. So he sort of rocks up. He obviously finds out about the meeting with Pam. So he rocks up at the bar, and like he obviously sees Pam at the table, goes to sit down with her, and she's carrying like this shotgun. How the hell did she get this pump action into the bar?
Good question. It's, it's not like she's got a big trench coat or anything. It's, she's just, there's nowhere to hide that. It
must have been down her jeans,
maybe. Yeah, I don't know, but interesting. Yeah, a good choice of weapon, I guess, for that close quarters. But there we go. Now, So this sequence, this is like a key moment, isn't it? Because obviously Benicio comes in, good old Dario, little baby Benicio, and this is the bit
21.
that scuppers Bond later on in the film, isn't it? Because this is where obviously Benicio sees Bond and then recognizes him later on in Sanchez's lab. So this is one of those things that kind of like you don't know it at the time, but this scene is going to be more important than you think it is.
Totally, yeah. And again, we get that nice sort of that evil smile when he's sort of like, nobody's asking you, Glingo, and he's just got that little smile. Yeah. And you're like, oh,
and that horrible
he looks
gold
so
tooth
evil
as well. Yeah.
And I love that that sort of jacket, just the style, the way that he dresses as well is kind of. It just really suits the character. I think he's great. So he basically sits down and Pam shoves that pump action between his legs and he's got his little mate, hasn't he, with a funny haircut, who basically Bond just slams his head into the table. It's like, run the tab and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. I like that. But then it sort of kicks off, doesn't it? All hell breaks loose.
All hell breaks loose. You know, it's got to be said that I appreciate a couple of things here, which is number one is during the fight, the dancing ladies on the podiums don't really, they just carry on dancing, don't they?
Dancing.
They don't get involved in any way. They don't run away in fright. They just carry on dancing.
Yeah.
So I feel like a brawl like that is probably a regular thing that happens at the Barrelhead. But so that's pretty nice. Now, you know, this is one of those things that comes up reasonably often with Timmy and the ladies. Now, there's that moment where the waitress comes over and they order the drinks. And she gives him like this cheeky wink. It's like, oh, sure thing, hun, and actually walks away. And I don't feel the magnetism from Tim at this point. I think he's too serious. I think if Roger for that kind of thing to happen, like if Roger was to walk in, Pierce, Sean, George, all those dudes sitting down, there would be that element of flirtatiousness coming from them, which would warrant the wink. But I don't believe the wink, Chris, in this case. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, now that you said it, I'm backing you up on that. I think it's because he's obviously not. We've mentioned the sort of dress sense in the previous episode. He's not sort of dressed as impeccably as he could be. Definitely not. And so he's not quite as suave at the moment. And within that situation, you're right. He is serious. He hasn't sort of played it for being a bit cheeky to the girl either. And I do. It's not quite there for me either. I know there are so many people that loved him and he's so good at certain things. But in terms of the women, like not all the time, because sometimes he definitely does pull it off. But I do agree that in this scene, it is a little bit. I'm not sure about that.
Do you know what I think?
But then would she say that to anyone?
That's a good point.
That's the other case. Maybe she says it to anyone because she wants to get tips.
Exactly. That is a good point. I think, do you know what I think it is? I think when somebody like George, Sean, Roger, Pierce walk into a room, there's a swagger to them, isn't there? There's like a swagger. Yeah. And I think with Tim in this particular film, especially, he's just so hell-bent on a vengeance mission. He's just so serious and wolf-like at all times. I don't think he gives off that vibe at all. He doesn't give off the machismo Bond swagger. You know, you imagine George's Bond strutting into the hotel or the casino or something, and he's just got that swagger that just draws the eye. I think Tim is so serious. I don't think he gives off the right vibes for that kind of behavior.
But that's exactly why it's like that in that case. So obviously he's hell bent on this sort of mission that he's not interested in having a bit of fun, is he?
No, absolutely.
So he's playing it right in terms of how Tim plays it, because that's what the character would be like if he was so sort of angry and he wouldn't be thinking about anything else. Yeah. So in a way, it is right in terms of how it's
not
sort of played out.
A slight on Timbo. I'm just
just
obviously in this particular story, he is on that hellbent vengeance mission. But it's that kind of that thing where you've got that wink from her, which is something George, Tim, Sean, Pierce would have got, Roger, but in this case, it just doesn't feel quite right. No, I feel like her reaction will be like, "Oh, I'm going to stay away from that guy. He looks like he means business." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. But I reckon getting the tips is probably a good reason why.
Absolutely.
So, what do you think about the potential fight? There are some really interesting moments. So there's quite a few sort of pool cues flying around and stuff like that. There's that guy that grabs a sort of swordfish off the wall.
That's a beauty,
and it sort of goes right through the chair next to Bond. There's like this massive muscly black guy with a hat who can hardly see out of his hat. His hat is like below his eyes, but he sort of punches Bond, and then Pam gets a pump action, sort of whacks it over the back of him. So and then suddenly just random people just start beating each other up for like no reason at all.
But that is the beauty of the 80s barroom brawl, Chris. That's you know, if you're in the bar and it kicks off, everyone's got to get involved. It's just the nature of the beast, I feel, in that way.
Totally. And it is a pretty cool scene. I do like it. And like, obviously with that song as well, I think it goes pretty well. So it gets a bit strange then, doesn't it? Because Pam shoots the sort of back of the wall and then the music kind of slows down and dies. Now, did she shoot like the jukebox equivalent? Because I don't think she did. What I was wondering what made the music go down, sort of slow down. It's strange.
Tally up perfectly with the hole being a perfectly circular hole. It must be said as well. Yeah. In that wall, it does kind of go at that exact moment. So I'm guessing, you know, that was somebody had thought, okay, listen, the dirty love is not helping matters. We need to turn the music off and kill the mood a bit. So I'm just guessing somebody, you know, pulled the plug out at the
or maybe it was connected to a wire or something, which might have been, I don't know.
Maybe,
but so this is an interesting bit. Then obviously they escape through the wall, go into the boat, and literally as soon as they're in the boat, Dario shoots Pam in the back, and she sort of falls forward, and that's it. You get that sort of sinister smile, and he thinks he's killed him. Now at this point, Bond turns around. Bear in mind that the boat has not left yet. The boat is still docked where it is. Bond turns around, gets his Walther, tries to shoot Dario from a range of about 15 feet, and he completely misses him. Now that's for me, that's a really, really bad shot for someone that's meant to be as good as Bond is. So I don't know if maybe they should have had someone next to Dario that he shot him instead. But to miss from that range is really bad.
Do you know what? I didn't pick up on that. There is that moment where the dude runs out along the little gangway there and he does shoot him, and that dude falls in the water. That happens just after that. Is that right?
Just afterwards, that's right. Yeah, so he does get him, and that's fair enough. I just think maybe the fact that he missed from so close, they should have had, you know, old Dario's mate who he knocked out, maybe if he had come to and he shot him or something. I don't know, but I've always thought of that even when I was younger. I thought, how could he have missed from there? You know? But anyway, it's only a small thing. So Bond and Pam get away, and then obviously Pam reveals she's wearing this Kevlar bulletproof vest. And Bond's like, come on, you know, you're bloody lucky to be alive and all this sort of stuff.
I tell you what, old Dalton's regional accent comes to the forefront more often in this film than anything else I've ever seen him in. It was about to turn nasty. That comes out later, doesn't it? And then you're bloody lucky to be alive. It comes out all the time, doesn't it? It's like, you know, Bond wasn't a Welshman, dude. You got to keep that under wraps a little bit.
It is quite an interesting sort of thing, moment when you get the old accent coming out, definitely. So this is quite cool then. So basically they obviously the fuel line's been hit, and the boat starts to lose power. Very well, kind of similar to the, Dr. No, when they obviously the boat's not shot, but they start to lose fuel and they end up together in the boat. And so they get this exchange, don't they? This sort of, you know how in GoldenEye it's boys with toys. That's the exchange you get with Bond and thing, and it's mentioned a couple of times. And this one is the exchange in License to Kill. It's why don't you wait until you're asked?
Well, why don't you ask me?
and it is cheesy as fuck. It is so cheesy, but you know, I think they get away with it a little bit. I think it works.
There is that age-old thing with Bond, isn't there? It's like I believe we last mentioned this when we reviewed The Spy Love Me, where, you know, Bond rocks up for his meeting or whatever, and then there's just this lady that's been sent to entertain him while he's waiting for whoever to show up, and then they just start macking out on each other. Yeah, and how funny that concept is. It's like if I was to come and visit you and you were held up at work or whatever, and it was like you just
I'd have someone ready in the wings waiting for you.
I hope so.
Totally.
Book me a ticket. I'll be over in a minute. But how funny that concept is. That it's just this lady who's just happy to put out for anybody's guest that rocks up. And it's a similar thing here where they're on this boat and they've just kind of met. She's given him the cold shoulder at Felix's house. Yeah. They've been in a barroom fight and they've just escaped, and she's ready for it. That, you know, the petrol runs out. You can almost see Roger raising his eyebrow at the moment the petrol runs out. And it's a callback to all those moments, isn't it?
It totally is, man. It totally is. I love it. I think it is quite cool, though, just before that, where Pam sort of has a go at Bond, saying that she's an army pilot and she was the one that rescued Bond. You know, she saved his life, not the other way around. Yeah. So she is a good, in terms of character, I do like Pam. You know, like we said early on, she gave him the cold shoulder and she's being quite, you know, strong with him here. And I think as a Bond girl, she's a pretty cool character. But then obviously we get to that point where, when they start macking out, it's a bit strange.
That is a good point about Bouvier, because I think you've got a balance here between Lupe, who is your traditional sort of like, it's a bit of a bimbo kind of, you know, kept woman, kind of doesn't do a lot kind of thing. Whereas Pam is the strong kind of like, she's a tough agent kind of thing. And, you know, in the vein of a you know, a Holly Goodhead or somebody like that. Do you know what I mean? A similar kind of level of character, I would say.
So what is your opinion of Pam in terms of, do you prefer with the long hair or the short hair, or do you not mind either way?
Do you know what? I think she looks a bit odd with the long hair. I think when she...
Do you think that's because we see her for so long in the film that she has short hair?
And I suppose every time we see her in an interview, she is rocking the shorter cut. So that's obviously kind of like the look she has in normal everyday real life as well. So I don't know whether that contributes it, just because I know that's kind of what she actually looks like day to day. But I don't know. I feel like there's that moment. I suppose they dress her down a bit, don't they? When she's got the long hair at the beginning, she's wearing sort of very sort of, you know, business-like clothes, I suppose you would say. And then the moment we see her with the short hair, she's in full-on bombshell Bond girl mode, isn't she? With the, you know, the glittery dress on, and she's all glammed up. So I guess, you know, I guess it's not an even sort of split, is it? She's in work mode. She's got, you know, the sensible blouse on when you see her earlier on, and then full on bombshell afterwards. So
very
but
true.
I'll go short hair in this case.
Cool. So which out of the two do you think had to swim ashore to get help then? Or do you think they just let the current? It's
a good question. I suppose you would assume Bond, but she's very strong-willed to sort of show that she means business. So maybe it was her, and he was like, all right.
I think so. I think Bond would have just rocked back with a cigarette and just chilled until she came back with help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who knows? Cool. So after that, then we get a little quick scene at MI6. So M basically has a go at Moneypenny. She's been sort of frantically trying to find out where James is and stuff like that. She checked with US immigration and found out he went missing, and M says that Bond has to be stopped. Now there's an interesting bit here. So we've got, from M's point of view, Bond's gone off on this rogue mission. M is not happy whatsoever. He wants Bond stopped, brought back. In fact, he sends someone out to try and bring him back later on in the film. Moneypenny goes behind M's back at this point and basically contacts Q Branch directly to tell Q, you know, Bond's in trouble, he needs your help. So together, Q and Moneypenny are both going behind M's back, and it's kind of like Inspector, where Q helps Bond without M knowing, initially at least, and I kind of like that. I think that's kind of a nice little moment. What do you think?
You know what? That is a Moneypenny thing to do, isn't it? You know, what would I do without your Moneypenny? You know, in Majesty's, Bond's obviously given his resignation in again, and she still steps in and stops that from happening. So that's good old Moneypenny. Basically, you know, you can always rely on her to step in at the right time and make stuff happen. But what I especially like about that is obviously I feel like this really is Desmond's time to shine in this film, isn't it? I love seeing him in the field like this. Every time Desmond can't come on screen without me smiling as a result. I just love the man. I just adore him. He's an adorable man. And seeing him in this kind of setting is brilliant as he kind of comes in. It's great. Yeah, it's a good old Moneypenny for making that happen.
Yeah, definitely. So we rock up at Isthmus and we see lots of posters of Hector Lopez, the El Presidente. Obviously,
tell me an interesting fact about Hector Lopez, Chris.
About Hector Lopez?
Yeah.
Is
or
he
rather the
also
actor who played him?
Oh, okay. So that would be Pedro Armendariz Jr., whose father was, Tom? Karimbe, Pedro Armendariz, yes. And I think, again, that's a really cool thing, isn't it?
Isn't it lovely,
keeping it in the family, so to speak, and having them there, which is really cool. So, so they end up at Isthmus, and Bond and Pam go to their hotel. And I love Pam's face when Bond basically says, "No, my executive secretary will sort that out." And Pam's face, obviously you've just seen her character. She's like independent type woman, and she can't stand it. But obviously Bond said, "Okay, we're south of the border. This is a man's world," sort of thing. And I like that. It's kind of a cool moment. So he opens a briefcase, shitloads of money inside. Gives Pam sort of, what's in there, sort of thing. So he gives her a few notes, pays her off, and she's like, no, she wants to stay. Now, do you think she wanted to stay because she'd just seen a shitload of money and she thinks, I'll have a bit of that? Or that she's anti-Sanchez? Or that she kind of likes to cut a Bond's jib and just wants to see how things go?
Well, you know what? There is a deleted scene. There's about 7 or 8 deleted scenes on the license. Well, I bought, there was an offer on iTunes last year for like all the Bond films for like 80 quid. And I thought, you know what? Bugger it. I know I already have these about 5 or 6 times, but I need them on iTunes just in case I'm caught without my Blu-rays somewhere and I need to watch a Bond film. So I thought, they're in the cloud at that point. I can summon them whenever I need them.
Do you know what? I just have to cut in and say, I absolutely love the line you just said.
Go on.
That I might be somewhere and I'll need to watch a Bond film. It's like it is. I'll need to watch it. It is therapy. I could not go without watching a Bond film. I'll need to watch. It's been a certain amount of time since I've seen one. It's on your mind. You just got to watch one. It's great. I love it. Man.
Absolutely. So now I'm sorted. As long as I've got an internet connection, I'm all right.
Cool. Sweet.
So to my surprise, you get all the extras and stuff like that when you buy them on iTunes. I thought that would just be a disc specific thing, but there's like sort of 7 or 8 deleted scenes on there, which are always interesting to see. And there is a moment cut out from the casino scene later where Pam is trying to sort of like get. I think I forget exactly, but she's got like a check in her hand or something that Bond snatches out of her hand and says like, this isn't for you or something like that. And she's like, I'm just trying to, earn a few extra bucks on the side or whatever. It's something like that. I'm totally getting that quite wrong, but that's the vibe of the scene. And it makes her look a bit like, like she's just out for a bit of cash kind of thing. So I'm sure that's why obviously they got rid of it. But maybe, like you say there, maybe there is a tinge of that in this scene that you're picking up on, because at some point, obviously, that scene was included as well.
Yeah, there we go. I do like the fact when Bond sort of says, well, here, gives her some more money, buy yourself some decent clothes. And I was like, that's quite a cool line. And so after that, basically, Bond gets driven in a Rolls to the Banco de Isthmus. And how slimy is this guy? So he goes in and basically says, Senor Bond, I'd like to make a small deposit. I'm sure my people downstairs can handle that. And then you see this massive heavy suitcase. Please sit down. And he's like so slimy.
Yeah, he's got like the super white teeth and the permatan, isn't he? He's one of those kind of like sleazy salesman types.
Totally.
So I've got a question for you then. Yes. Obviously, listeners to JBR's The Music of Bond with good old John Williams will know. John is particularly sensitive to fictional locations. Like, for example, Isthmus is a perfect example. And obviously, I'm at a brain fart again. What's Mr. Big's island called? Salmonique.
Salmonique. There's Crab Key, Nimbatu in Casino Royale. There's like quite a few times that they use.
So that brings good old John into a rage. He can't bear it. Now, how do you feel about that? Is that something, would you rather this have been Panama or somewhere like that, or are you okay with Isthmus?
Well, it obviously is Panama, but they just haven't said Panama. Panama itself is an isthmus, the country.
Hold on. So what do you mean by an isthmus is a thing? What is an isthmus?
Yes, it's a geographical thing. So an isthmus sort of splits to, in this case, it's 2 oceans. So obviously you got the Atlantic and the Pacific with the Panama Canal, you've got that waterway that goes through them. If you Google Isthmus, it's a geographical feature.
I'm going to do it right now.
And that's what Panama is.
Okay, here we go. Look, Isthmus, a narrow strip of land with sea on either side, forming a link between 2 larger areas of land. There you go.
Yeah. And that's exactly what Panama is, the country. And equally, Panama's dictator at the time, Manuel Noriega, Sanchez is kind of I based partly on him and partly on Pablo Escobar, the obviously Colombian drug lord, and he's kind of like a mix of those two.
Yeah,
that's kind of what I've sort of taken from it.
So it'll be interesting to find out why they went down that route. Do you think, obviously, because this is such a Bond film and a story so rooted in reality with the drug trade, do you think that was, and obviously that was all based around South America, do you think that was a point, rather than pointing a finger at a specific place, which is a very political thing to do, it was like, let's just kind of play it easy here, you know? I'm
pretty sure that's got to be the answer because, okay, so let's think Crab Key could be any little island in Jamaica, really, couldn't it? Nambutu, I guess, could have been, because it was some African country, you know, I'm sure it's for, you don't want to be sued or something like that. And to be honest, I can get what John is saying, but I've never had an issue with that. Like Sam Monique, I think it's great. And do you know what I love? In fact, I love the fact that they create country like the national flag for San Monique. It's a fictional country, but they get the fact they go into so much detail, and you see the flag and you know, in this case you got the El Presidente and all that sort of stuff. That I actually think that's a really cool thing. Like, I quite like it.
I do like that level of detail, actually. So one thing I noticed last time I watched it was with the tankers at the end, like on their license plate on the car, on the underneath, they've got just like the little stamp of Isthmus underneath it, like they would, you know, just great. So super attention to detail. But I'm guessing in this case it was we're treading in sort of quite dangerous waters with the drug trade, especially in the late 80s when it was totally at its height, that you don't want to piss off the wrong person. And, you know, if for example, if Sanchez was a carbon clone of Pablo Escobar or something, and they were filming in Pablo Escobar country or something, that's going to arouse the interest of people you do not want to be dealing with. So I guess that's why they kind of shield it a little bit.
But you have heard the story that Robert Davi was obviously method acting throughout the film. He went to speak to drug lords, and after the film, there were drug lords that wanted to speak to him for praising him for how close to reality his portrayal was. So he actually, got to speak to people that were the equivalent of Sanchez, and obviously, you want to behave yourself in that situation. But that's what happened to Robert Davi. But that's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now, next up, we meet Professor Joe Butcher. Now, back in the day, it took me, I have to confess, and I will be honest, I just thought Professor Joe was a nice man on the telly getting money for charity. It took me quite a number of years to actually realise what he was actually doing on the TV. And it's genius when it's kind of worked into the plot. But I just thought he was a nice guy back in the day when I was a kid.
Completely the same, man. Completely the same. I think if you were like 10, 12 years old and you got what he was on about, there's got to be something pretty wrong with you. True. I suppose.
Good point.
Yeah. But I love it. Like just watching it again. This is an aspect of License to Kill that I hadn't sort of previously appreciated maybe as much as when I really analyse it. And that whole idea of him, you know, being this evangelist and trying to bring money for sort of religious purposes for the chapel, but actually, well, he does get money donated for religious purposes, which is a little bit on the side, but it's obviously the main purpose is to put up the sale of drugs through Sanchez's organization and sort of sell it. And it's a genius idea. The secrets of cone power, man. I love it. I might get myself a little necklace with a cone and just like rock a white suit and get my teeth whitened and just go and have some fun.
Absolutely. Good stuff. So obviously we see Sanchez in his office with his pet iguana. Now, I kind of like that idea, right? I feel like the iguana, I feel like we should have seen a little bit more of the iguana because it's almost like Blofeld's pussycat, isn't it? It's like there's that little kind of like, it just makes Sanchez stand out a little bit more, I think, because you've just not kind of seen that before.
I like the fact that you've got, obviously it's got a diamond collar, very similar to Blofeld's cat in Diamonds Are Forever. But there was also a thing that I remember reading once, which I know isn't true, which is in the pre-title sequence when Sanchez whips Lupe. Some people had written that it was actually the tail of his iguana that he was using to whip Lupe, which obviously isn't the case because we know it's not the case. But that is an interesting thing. It's almost like, here's my cute little iguana. By the way, this tail is lethal as well.
Yeah,
it's a bit
yeah.
of a, I don't know if you could do it in terms of harming the animal at the same time, but that is kind of like an interesting concept, I suppose, isn't
I think, yeah, I see what people are saying because of the shape of that thing that he uses.
It's definitely not, though. It's
no,
definitely
of
not,
course
though.
not. No, I think part of me would think that was actually very ridiculous if he's literally holding onto a iguana and twatting her with it. That would just be a bit silly. But maybe if it was the tail of an iguana fashioned into a whip, you know, like a leather whip would be, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And he's like, "This is what you're going to turn into if you don't like give me a kiss or whatever."
Yeah, but I tell you what, I like seeing Sanchez in this setting because obviously Bond is kind of at the casino to get close to Sanchez and draw some attention. That's why he's like doing high stakes gambling, because he knows they're going to be watching on the cameras. And I like to see a Bond villain in their element of power. And he's in his totally. Really lush, lavish office up there. He's got all the cameras and all his kind of cronies around him and stuff. And he's like an image of power and wealth, isn't he, up there, which I think is a nice touch. Man.
He's got that massive desk as well that he's just sitting behind. Yeah. Obviously, he's got his little army around him, his little sort of family he just sort of exudes power, which is exactly what you want out of that sort of character. Now, I think, he's brilliant.
Tell me this: why do I hate Truman Lodge as soon as I lay eyes on him?
What in terms of the character?
Yeah.
Do you know what? Because he is. He's a slimy accountant, I suppose. Might be the reason. But he's the sort of guy where he'd sort of squirm his way out of anything. I think. I think that's probably the reason why. But then you need people like that. I actually like him in terms of I think he fits Sanchez's team really well because he's not physically challenging, but he's obviously intelligent and he's really good with numbers and stuff like that. But he's a little bit cocky as well. That whole bit where he's flicking that little ball between his fingers and sort of says, "Oh, they went for the deal" and all this. It's that little bit of cockiness, and you think, "Oh, hang on a minute."
I think that's what it is because he's got that cocky vibe to him that I think would just annoy me if I knew him in real life. Do you know what I mean?
He's like a city boy, isn't he?
Yeah.
Typical city boy.
And do you know what? There's another deleted scene, which is Bond and Pam arriving at Isthmus Airport in one of those little planes, and as luck would have it, the Hong Kong guys are arriving at the same time in a private jet, and they're all kind of filing out of the plane. And Truman Lodge is there to meet them, and Pam basically says, and Hella is there as well. And Pam basically sort of, as they're walking away, briefs them. She's like, "Check out those two over there. That's Truman Lodge." And he's wanted for insider trading on Wall Street back home. So there's a little bit of backstory for him that we didn't get in the film.
Yeah,
and then
that's interesting.
She says that I forget what she says about Hella now, but he was like an ex-Green Beret that's always also on the most wanted list.
Yeah.
So it's that was quite an interesting, just little snippet of Truman Lodge's backstory there.
But you could totally see that within the character, can't you? That he's that sort of person. Interesting. Okay, so we have to talk about this.
Go on.
Bond and Pam rock up to go to the casino.
Yes.
Yeah. Pam looks lovely. She's got this beautiful sort of glittery dress, which we mentioned. She's had a haircut. Looks amazing. Oh, by the way, Pam Bouvier. He calls her Miss Kennedy.
Yes.
Do you know why that is, or what that relates to?
Miss Kennedy? No, not off the top of my head.
So JFK's wife was Jackie Kennedy, and her maiden name was Bouvier. So that's where they got it from, which is quite a cool little thing as well.
I didn't know that. That's good. We're learning all sorts today, aren't we, Chris? I like it. Nice work.
That's quite a cool little bit. Yeah. But so we got Pam who rocks up looking amazing. And we get Tim. Now he's in the tux, he's in the dinner jacket. He does like the dinner jacket look, obviously it's a classic Bond look.
Yeah.
But we've got to mention it, Tom. It's the Dracula hair.
Yeah.
Now what I know we've mentioned this I don't know how many times in this podcast, but what do we say about the Dracula hair? What do you think?
It's an unfortunate thing. I think ultimately it's obviously it's not Timmy's fault. And it's one of those things that I have to stress again. I adore Timmy. I love the man.
Yeah.
But I think in this film, he was let down by the wardrobe department because, like we said last time, there's never really a moment, apart from when he's in the wetsuit on the wave crest earlier on, that he looks the business. Do you know what I mean? The clothes he's in just sort of look a bit run of the mill, and he doesn't look like the super cool Bond that he perhaps should be. And I don't know why nobody said, "Hang on, Matt, we need to give Timmy a haircut because this ain't looking right." Because that haircut in the casino scene is, I don't even know what that is.
It's like the sort of slick back thing, but because there's a bit of volume, it's kind of up, so it's not completely flat slick back. And it does look like the Dracula sort of look, isn't it? It's that sort of thing where it's slightly further forward and a little bit in the middle.
He's got like the widow's peak, isn't it, where it comes to a point in the middle.
And it's very, very strange. Very strange. It's a shame because obviously you want Bond to look his best. And the scene itself is great. I think, what happens within the scene is cool. But it's just, I think it just had to be pointed out because you think about how good he looks in Living Daylights, the sniper scene and all that sort of stuff, and the pre-title scene. He looks great there. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. And it's just a shame that, obviously, they did, what they did.
There are some angles that they get Timmy from in this film where he, we often say about that scene in Casino Royale where he's chasing after Vesper in the car at the end, and there's just that sort of grey blue tint across the screen, and you see Bond behind the wheel, and you just see Daniel's steely blue eyes behind the wheel, and you're like, brilliant, damn, man, he looks good in that shot. There are some shots in License to Kill where the camera gets Timmy just right, and he's got that same, it's not the same, but he's got that, as we often say, that sort of wolfish kind of look in his face, and those eyes I think are Timmy's most powerful part of Bond. Like, it's just, definitely, there's something in there that just says, hang about. It's not like he's built like a brick shit house like Daniel is, and you're like, you could kick my ass. You don't get that. You don't get that kind of vibe from Tim, but you get it's such an element of danger from him that you look at him, you're like, I'm not going to go near that dude because he's going to go places that I don't want to visit. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Yeah. So, what did you think about this? Obviously, normally, if it had been a casino scene, they would have played Shemmy, wouldn't they? A bit of Chemin de Fer. Yeah. Obviously, it's blackjack this time. I guess that's, it's like Texas Hold'em and Casino Royale. I think it's just going with the time, isn't it, and changing with the times and stuff like that. I
wonder whether it's a location thing as well, because if he was in a casino in Europe, I'm sure it would be Chemin de Fer.
That's
especially
very
France.
True, actually.
Maybe it's an American thing, like, but obviously South America in this case, but like maybe it's just in that part of the world you would play that game. So maybe
that's a very good point, actually. Very, very good point. So what? And another interesting thing is when Bond starts playing, he starts like losing. He doesn't win straight away, and we never seen that before with Bond. So
I think that's intentional.
I do as well. But go on, what's your thoughts behind it?
My thought is because then he follows through by saying he wants to up the ante, doesn't he? Up the stakes. So I feel like he's lulling the casino into full sense of security. Thinking we've got a chump on our hands here. He wants to raise the limit. Let's give him as high a limit as he needs, and let's take him to the cleanest kind of thing. And obviously, then he switches it around.
Yeah, totally the same. I remember before thinking this guy's, when they sort of said, he's playing like a real jerk off or whatever, and then I'm like, come on, Bond's better than this. But it's completely the way. He's obviously doing it for a reason, just so he can get a higher.
It's not like he's short of cash at this point either, is it?
No, that's very true. Yeah, very true. Yeah, just to get the limit. So basically, he does that, and then obviously he starts doing really well, and Sanchez is informed, and he basically sends Loopy down then, doesn't he, to sort of change his luck. I must say as well, what do you think of Loopy in terms of the red dress and all that? Do you find her, like, is she a hot Bond girl for you?
Absolutely, proper stunner. I think. It's funny in watching the extras as well. They were telling a story about how when they auditioned for Lupe's part, John Glenn said to Robert Darby, like, listen, as Sanchez, you're going to need to be absolutely in love with this woman. So we want you to help us audition for that part. So basically, he played Bond in all the auditions, and then all the girls came in, and he was Bond, and obviously she was auditioning for Lupe, and he was key in choosing her for the part. So she's obviously Darby's cup of tea as well.
There we are. Apparently, he was really good as Bond as well. Yeah. That's what John Glenn said. But I mean, I think License to Kill is a bit underrated in terms of the Bond girls, because it never really gets a shout out. But I think both Pam and Loopy are like, good quality bondage.
Absolutely, yeah. I see you're controlling your language pretty well there, Chris. I see you could go.
Yeah, I was trying to think what I could potentially say.
You're trying to keep it down the middle line now. I appreciate that. Yeah, as do our lady listeners probably. But Lupe, definitely.
Yeah. So basically, Bond then tells Pam to go and order a vodka martini for him, which she does, and then basically Lupe says to him, like, you should just get out of here, otherwise if Sanchez finds you, you'll be in trouble. And Bond's basically, no, take me to him. She's like, El Loco, you'll get us both killed. Yeah. And stuff like that. And that's quite cool. So Bond sort of goes away with Lupe. Pam turns around, sees him sort of walk off, and then basically she downs a vodka martini, shaken not stirred, which is probably the first Bond girl to have done that.
That's a good point.
Maybe, probably.
It's the only one I can think of at this point, yeah.
Yeah. So that's quite cool. And then so I think one of the most important scenes in a Bond film, which I think for pretty much the majority, is when Bond meets the main villain for the first time. And you think of all the classic scenes you get. You get like Bond and Zorin in that little party thing when they're sort of playing off each other. Obviously, Bond and Scaramanga, and every time he meets the main villain, it has to be a good scene. Like Bond and Blofeld Inspector, I thought was brilliant. So what do you think of the whole Bond Sanchez meeting?
Yeah, man. There's often that thing of, especially when Bond's on a race against time, there's what we call poking the bee's nest, isn't it? Where he goes in there and, obvious one that jumps into mind is Tomorrow Never Dies, where he makes a comment about being lost at sea to Jonathan Pryce and all that kind of stuff. And there is often that scene where they're essentially sizing each other up before they really know, the villain really knows who Bond is, perhaps. And this is a good one. And I tell you what, this is slightly different in the sense that rather than do that, where he's poking the bee's nest and sort of like letting the villain know that Bond's on his case kind of thing, just so he can get a reaction, this time he's actually going undercover and trying to curry favor, which doesn't happen all that often. This is one of those kind of unique cases. So yeah, and I do enjoy this sequence a lot, because whenever you're in a situation like that where you're undercover and at any moment somebody can blow that cover, the tension is through the roof, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it's just that completely. One thing can go wrong and then everything's out the window. And there's a lot of luck involved here as well. So obviously he goes into Sanchez's office, they frisk him, take his gun and passport. And I like the way Timmy's got this thing that he does where when he goes somewhere where he wants to have a poke about, he just makes use of it as kind of, like, for example, when he goes and does the Carcarius bit earlier on, and he's just literally wanders off and he's having a look around all the tanks and stuff like that. Yeah. He makes use of it. And this time, obviously, he goes to the window, makes the comment, lovely view, and then he's checking out the glass and stuff. I love seeing Bond do that stuff, man, because that's what, if you look at Bond in the books and stuff, he's always kind of like working out the escape route before anything's kicked off and all that kind of stuff. And this to me is that to a T. He's like scoping out the room, right? How can I get to Sanchez? The window's the obvious weak point. Let's check that out first. And I love all that stuff, man. It's great.
It's great. Yeah. And he obviously is looking at the building sort of in the distance where he's going to be taking the shot from, sees the armor like 3 glass and all of that, and he's just, like you said, he's just sizing it up. He's working out, okay, is this possible? What's going to happen? And again, that's Bond's job, isn't it? And we like to see Bond doing his job, to do spying, to work stuff out. And it's great. And I like the bit when he first sort of turns up, he goes to shake Sanchez's hand and Hella sort of just pushes him away and says, just a moment, sort of thing. And Sanchez doesn't even go there to shake his hand. But obviously that changes at the end of the scene. But no, this is really cool. So you mentioned about a bit of luck. I think the biggest bit of luck that I can see in this is, okay, so where is Dario at the moment? Because if Dario had been in that office, game over. Straight away, everything's up. That's it. Bond is screwed. The fact that we don't really see Dario between now and I think between now and the end of the film almost.
Well, isn't it the last time we see him is at the Barrelhead? Is that right? And then the next time we see him is at Sanchez's lab at the end of the film. So I think that's it. So I'm guessing, for whatever reason.
Well, he gets in a helicopter with Sanchez, doesn't he, from his Acapulco house, just when they're on the way to the lab at the end. But
okay. So I didn't pick up on that. So then I guess I would assume Dario would be spending most of his time at the lab. But if he went there with Sanchez, I guess he's just taken up with other kind I suppose Sanchez's organisation is so massive. Dario's got to look after some of it. Various parts. So I mean, obviously we can sort of let that go, but it's just quite an interesting thing when you think about it. It's like, oh, where's Dario, sort of thing. But Yeah, absolutely. And there's that, I love these Bond villain moments when obviously he asks him why he carries a gun and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And in my business, you prepare for the unexpected. And I really like how Timmy plays this, right? Because he's sort of like, mumble is the wrong word, but he's almost sort of speaking under his breath the whole time. He's more of a problem eliminator. You know what I mean? He's just got this like real sort of like low key delivery in this, which I really like. It makes him more menacing. I like it.
Yeah, totally. I think that's part of his character that he's trying to play off to Sanchez. And I love that bit. So a problem solver, more of a problem eliminator. And then the fact that Sanchez and Bond just sort of laugh and they get each other, but none of the others are sort of in on it almost. They're all just like, oh, what do you mean? And I think that's quite cool. And there's also that other bit where Sanchez is like, oh, so why are you here sort of thing? And Bond's like, I thought I could find employment here. And Sanchez is like, well, it's very difficult for people to obtain a work permit in Isthmus. Someone has to show a special talent that others don't have. And Bond just has a look around the room, looks at Truman Lodge, looks at Perez and Braun and goes, well, that shouldn't be too difficult.
Yeah, I like that. That's a nice little touch.
And you can see Truman Lodge's face. He's like put out by it as well, isn't he? It's that's quite a cool little bit. I like that.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
So obviously there's the little again, Sanchez is reiterating his importance of loyalty, how he, that's most important to him. Keeps hold of his PPK. Isthmus is a very safe city. You won't need a gun. And I imagine Isthmus would be a safe city in the respect that if you stay away from the drug lords, then you kind of get left alone. So, nobody's going to step out of line, I guess, in that regard. But Bond's a little bit pissed off at that, you can see. And then one thing I do like is as Bond and Pam exit the casino, obviously, you see Quang and Lottie kind of just coming out of the doorway, kind of, eyeballing them. And I do like that. I like when Bond isn't aware of things. It reminds me of the whole Red Grant thing shadowing him through the train,
That's such a good
because
bit, isn't it?
there's that tendency with Bond to think that he's just like a Superman. He's not a Superman. And that he's just like, always in control of every moment. And when you see things like that, you just know there's that extra element of danger when that Bond's not aware of that as well, which is kind of a nice touch.
I think maybe that's missing. I think more of that would be good in the Bond series. Just having the audience in on something that Bond doesn't know, and it's just ramping up the tension and the danger because ultimately something is going to happen because of that. Yeah, and like the Red Grant sort of bit is perfect example of that. That's like it's so good, and you can feel it as well, can't you? When you're watching, you're like, oh shit, something is going to happen. But I really like that. It's good point. That
now. We go back to the hotel. Bond goes to the desk to get his key, and he's informed his uncle has arrived, which reminds me of Mrs. Bond from Live and Let Die. And they get in the lift. Now, is that or is that not the very same lift from Spectre's pre-title sequence? Tell me that.
It is certainly the same building, and I think they've got like 3 lifts or something. And it is, if it's not the same lift, it is one of those lifts next door to each other. I can't remember if people have said it's exactly the same one, but it is in the same building and stuff like that. It looks exactly the same.
Even as they get out of the lift, once they've got up to their floor, it kind of just feels like the same spot. But it's hard to know exactly for sure which one it was.
It's the same building, without a doubt.
Yeah, so, definitely the same building. Yeah, for sure. But now I love this moment because obviously we've got the moment where Bond bursts through the hotel room door. He's got Pam's little kind of mini. Is that a Derringer? When those little tiny?
It's a Beretta Jetfire, I think.
Very nice.
And she's got 2. So she's got one. She got it almost like a gadget dress, hasn't she? Where she sort of rips off the bottom part of the dress and got the gun in her garter. But then she's got a second Beretta in her handbag as well, which is quite cool.
I like that. Yeah. That's a nice little unspoken thing. I like those things where it's just, you don't have to say it, you don't have to spoon feed the audience, and that says something about her character, doesn't it? He takes the one from her little sort of like thigh holster, which that's the one you'd go for, isn't it, at the end of the day? And then immediately as he's stomping off to the room, she opens her bag, opens her purse, and she's got another one straight away, and it shows how resourceful. That's just a little unspoken thing of how resourceful and in control she is and prepared. It's not like, oh no, I don't have a gun, I'm just gonna have to stand here and be useless like a lot of characters would. She's very totally in control, which I do like. I appreciate that.
So what do we think of this scene now where Bond sort of goes to open the door, shoves it forward, thinking like some sort of assailant is in there, and he knocks poor old Q over in his chair, doesn't he? But this scene is brilliant, isn't it? I love Q so much.
Yeah. I love it. It's like I say, every time Desmond is on screen, I've just got a smile on my face, and I love him. And like we said, this is totally his time to shine. You know, it's about time Q had more camera time. And this is. I feel like this has to be my favourite kind of movie for Q action. I think.
Definitely. Yeah. So he basically tells Bond that he was on leave, and Moneypenny sort of told him where Bond was and how to get to him. So this is where he starts to. They start to have a look at everything for a man on holiday. So obviously the classic gadget scene. So this is where we get. Obviously, you get the toothpaste and stuff like that. The Dentonite toothpaste, which is brilliant. You get the exploding alarm clock, guaranteed never to wake up anyone that uses it. And I love that. I think that's such a cool idea. But while they're sort of going through the gadgets, Pam comes in, doesn't she? And obviously has a gun, thinking there's a mess to clean up. And I like that little line. What does Bond say? What does he say? It's something like, Pam, this is Q, my uncle. Uncle, this is Miss Kennedy, my cousin, or something. And
we must be related.
That's a really cool little bit, isn't it? I quite like that.
Yeah. Like that
obviously, little in joke as well with the CIA being cousins, as they say, which is quite cool. So basically that's when Q then goes on to the signature gun, doesn't he? Very similar sort of thing. Was it Skyfall?
Skyfall with the PPK.
Yeah, Skyfall with the PPK. Same idea.
Yeah.
And he programs it so only Bond can fire it. And then as they're sort of going through, Pam gets up this little camera to take a photo. And shit goes down, doesn't it, Tom?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think do you know what? I think this sequence is very important because it anchors it as a Bond film. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Because like we said last time, the difference in tone of this and feel could quite easily be, the majority of this film could be a Bruce Willis, Mel Gibson kind of, action thriller from the 80s. It has that total vibe. I could see Bruce Willis jumping on the tankers and stuff and all that. Like most of this film, I could see that being another hero in the place of it. Simply because it has that 80s action film, very much of its time. You watch your Die Hards, your Lethal Weapons, all those kinds of things. It has that same kind of vibe to it. So the fact that you've got good old Q in there, dishing out some gadgets, I feel like that helps bring it back towards your traditional Bond stuff than just going all out super realistic drug lord gangsters.
Yeah. Totally. And we get probably one of the best lines in the series from Q. Remember, if it hadn't been for Q Branch, you'd have been dead long ago.
Absolutely.
And that's
very true
brilliant
as well.
line.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. Yeah, totally true. Obviously Pam tries the camera, the laser fires out, almost getting them. And then it gets sort of a Polaroid picture and you see it's almost like an X-ray scan, isn't it? Which is kind of strange. And then basically you got that cool little bit at the end where they sort of say, right, it's time for bed. And Pam walks to her room and says,
I love this bit. I love it so much.
Sweet dreams, Mr. Bond. And you just see Bond sort of look at Pam, look at Q, look at Pam, and then walks towards Q. What does he say, Tom?
I hope you don't snore, Q. Yeah, I love that. I love it when a Bond girl kind of puts Bond in his place like that. Do you know what I mean? It's such a funny thing that, he's going to be expecting to be sleeping with Pam that night because they've already had a little snog on the boat, obviously.
That's true.
That has been established. But and then in my mind, can you imagine them both getting ready for bed that night? You know what I mean? Just getting in their gym jams.
Putting on their PJs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Be like, you go first, Q.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. So then after that, we're back at the casino. So this is where Sanchez is having his meeting with the drug cartel, with all the people sort of from around the Pacific, as they say. It's East meets West. Drug dealers of the world unite, which is quite a cool little bit. And while that's happening, Bond is basically out. Q waits outside, and Bond tells Pam that he works better alone, gives her some money, and inside the casino. And then this is another cool little bit of Bond sneaky. So he just pretends to be a waiter, doesn't he? He has his little tray with the drinks on, walks through. Doesn't look very sort of Isthmusian compared to the other waiters.
I guess so. Yeah, he does look a little bit out of place. But no, that's another thing I do really like, actually, is just when he he just sort of improvises in a moment like that and just totally sort of owns it. And it's that thing of like, you know, if you don't want to be noticed, just walk with purpose and nobody's going to notice that you're there. And I love how
or
he just
challenge you even if they do notice you.
Yeah. And it's just like, you know, within the space of a few seconds, he's swooped in, picked up the tray. He's got the little sort of napkin thing over his arm and walks through, straight in the lift, up he goes, climbs in through the lift, and just like that whole movement is so smooth and so like it's so easy for him. Do you know what I mean? That it's, I just love the way he kind of like melts away kind of thing almost. And 1 minute he's there. If you were one of those waiters, 1 minute he's there, next minute he's nowhere to be seen. I really like that.
That's it. The lift door opens, they see the tray and the guy sort of has a little look around. There's normally someone with the sort of tray or whatever. And that's really cool. And like within seconds, and he's on the roof. And again, like with Living Daylights, he had the dinner jacket that folded over. This time he's got the cummerbund that's got the sort of rope hidden within it, and the gloves and stuff that he wears, which is really cool, isn't it? That additional thing. I like another little mini gadget within his within his sort of outfit. And so he ties on the rope, does a little abseil, and I love the bit he cups a little feel on the way down, doesn't he?
That was a little Roger moment, wasn't it? Just abseiling down, hand on the boobie, as you would. Yeah, lovely.
It's got to be done.
That. Yeah.
So then he sort of abseils down. We get a classic John Glenn signature moment as well with the pigeons.
With the pigeons, absolutely.
That's right. Got to be done. And then you've got 2 rooms. So you've got these sort of girls in one room that he has a little look at, and then you've got the meeting room next door with Sanchez and all the sort of Oriental drug cartels are around the table. Now this is quite interesting. So you get the point where obviously Hella and Truman Lodge are in there, and Bond obviously he wants to basically get a shot at Sanchez. So he starts sort of sliding along the bottom with the Dentonite toothpaste, and he's got the little cigarette pack. Lark cigarettes that is like the detonator type thing. And I love the little plinky noise it makes. I don't know why.
You need
I just
some
love
flashing lights and some beeps, man, and things like that. You know, it's not the most, you know, if you're going to use, you know, plastic explosive, it's probably going to be in a somewhat sneaky way, especially for something like Bond. But, you know, having some flashing lights on there isn't the most inconspicuous thing in the world.
All the
blinky blinkies. But I feel like you do need them for some reason. They need to be in there.
Yeah. Definitely. And it looks really cool. And then basically, obviously, once he's set that up, he exits the casino and Q is now his chauffeur. I love the fact that Q's got so many different roles. Like he's almost in disguise in various different ways, but he's obviously his chauffeur and drives off. But again, we get another little moment where someone's watching them. It turns out to be Fallon, but we don't know at the moment. And he just watches them drive off and then follows. You're like, oh, okay. What's this? Obviously, we've seen the Hong Kong people a little bit earlier. And then in the meeting, Kwang tells Sanchez, so Sanchez is sort of bigging everyone up and they're all loving it. But Kwang's like, you know, we've eaten well, drunk well, or whatever it is. But before we invest money, I want to see some hardware.
Yeah.
And this is a moment where Sanchez is like, oh, hang on a minute, this is a bit sketchy.
Yeah.
And Kwang is like, well, if you had invested whatever it is,
$100 million.
$100 million. Obviously, you'd want to check it out as well. And so Sanchez says, "Okay, fine, we'll show you our distribution center tomorrow. But for now, you know, entertain yourselves." And then he opens the door, and all the guys walk out, and all the women are about at least a foot bigger than them, and they're like, "Come and entertain them," which is quite a funny little moment. That. And then Sanchez goes back in and Truman's like, why show them the lab? And Sanchez is basically, it's okay, we won't sort of expose the operation and everything like that. And I like all of that. What's your opinion on that sort of scene with the whole...
Do you know what? I really like... Obviously, we're smack bang in the middle of a sneaky Bond sequence there. I like the tension of him like hiding behind the sort of pillars outside, and Hella even comes to the window and he hears the pigeons, doesn't he? And sort of like scopes it out, and Bond's just out of shot. I love all that stuff, and I love the tension of him lying on his back and squeezing the toothpaste along. It's like he's just an inch out of shot at all times.
It's a cool little soundtrack, music cue there as well when that's happening.
Yeah. Like I said, really Michael Kamen's not shy of using some classic Bond tropes in his score, man. There's so much ding 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 dings and stuff littered throughout, so I salute him for that big time. But I love that whole thing. And you know what I like as well, which is something that doesn't happen often in Bond as well, which makes this one a bit different, is that we later find out that Kwang is from Hong Kong intelligence and he's been working on Sanchez for years and they're just about to crack the case. And Bond has essentially stumbled in and ruined that whole thing. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, if Bond just didn't do anything, chances are Hong Kong intelligence would have Sanchez within a couple of weeks and he'd be brought to justice.
Yeah.
But I guess for Bond, it's death or nothing is what he wants. He needs to kill Sanchez to get the vengeance.
Yeah, that's completely it, isn't it? He wants the Avengers. But that is true. But then again, who knows? Hong Kong narcotics might have screwed things up as well. You never know.
That's true.
But yeah, it's quite an interesting thing. And Krang just looks chuffed as soon as Sanchez knows that because he's like, right, I've got you.
Yeah.
So Bond, he then sort of thanks Q for his help, tells him to go back to London. Q looks devastated. I love it. You could tell Q's just loving it. Like he's having a really good time helping Bond, and he's enjoying being out in the field, isn't he? So obviously he doesn't want to go, but Bond sort of tells him that. So then we've got Bond basically goes into that building opposite that he saw through the window and starts setting up. So this is quite similar to Living Daylights with a sniper scene, or Patrice in Skyfall. You know, we see him sort of set stuff up. He puts the sort of signature gun together, doesn't he? He's got that little sort of box for the detonator with the switch, and he's just lining up the sight on the window. So he obviously presses a button to explode the detonator. The window sort of smashes, and he's about to take a shot when a ninja comes down and hits him, and Hela saves sort of Sanchez, or pushes Sanchez out the way, doesn't he? Yeah. Which is, what do you think of all this bit?
I think it's nice to see some ninjas in Bond again. It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yes. It certainly has. Yeah.
Ninjas are always cool as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's what my nephew said.
Very nice. Yeah, I think it's cool. There's just that sort of brief moment when obviously the window blows and Bond's got his kind of scope and he's just sort of like wavering over Sanchez's chest, and then obviously it all kind of kicks off.
What line does Bond say there?
Watch the birdie, you bastard.
That's another time where the accent comes through a little bit. It does,
doesn't it? No, it's bastard, isn't it? He says,
bastard. Yeah. So what is your opinion on what that line means?
Watch the birdie. Now, do you know what? I'm going to Google that because that's something.
No, because I can tell you.
All right, go on.
I did Google it.
All right,
so basically, it relates to an old style of how they used to do photography. If they'd have sort of children who were always mucking about, they'd have like a little toy bird or a toy animal on top of the camera, and they'd basically say, look at the bird or whatever it is. And that's how they'd keep their focus. So he's basically saying to Sanchez, look this way so I can take a clean shot, basically. So that's what it means, yeah.
Mate, it's quite interesting though, isn't it? This is an educational episode. I'm learning a lot today. It's good. Absolutely. Yeah. Even outside the world of Bond. That's nice. You know what I do feel is funny though about Bond choosing this particular method to get Sanchez is if, say a drug lord came along, Chris, and fed you to the sharks and dropped you on the sofa, and I came round to your house and found you like that with your leg hanging off or whatever. Yeah. And I was like, right, I've got to go and get vengeance on this dude now. And I went on a vengeance mission to avenge you.
Yeah. I expect nothing less.
I would want to get up close and personal with that person and let them know why. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Don't you want to know why? And choosing the sniper is a bit detached, I think. I feel like Bond would want to get up there and do it with a knife or something. Do you know what I mean?
That's a really good point. That is a really good point.
Because then Sanchez is never going to know why he's like. No, 1 minute Sanchez is in his office, next minute he's dead, and he's never going to know why he's been killed.
I think that's an incredibly good point, because that whole thing at the end with the lighter, that's part of the reason, isn't it? That's why he's on there, and the whole sniper thing. You'd almost have to have like Bond send a little note to him saying, "Look up, it's me," and then shoot him or something, wouldn't you? Because and the fact as well, just prior to that, he's also, while he's checking out the window, he's looked across and he's seen Hela and Pam Bouvier, hasn't he? So he's suddenly thinking, "Well, what's going on here?" She's chatting to Hela. Is she working for them as well? Yeah. So his mind's probably doing 1,000 leaps. You know what? Time sort of thing.
I forgot about that. That's another thing Bond has stumbled into and kind of ruined. Obviously, the CIA have got their own kind of thing going on with Sanchez, and obviously she later reveals that they have a deal going with Hela that he would get the stingers back and get immunity and all that kind of stuff, because Sanchez threatened to shoot down an airliner, which is similar to a real life event. Going back to the whole Narcos thing, Pablo Escobar bombed a passenger jet. back in the day, loads of innocent people died and stuff, and that was one of the key turning points that sort of like was sort of turned him out of favor with the local people and stuff. So so that's another thing that Bond stumbled into, that you do kind of get the feeling that this is a real good document of reckless Bond, isn't it? Because there's two operations there that he's completely buggered up by taking the action that he has, because he's so blinded by inconsolable rage that he has to get his own back on Sanchez.
Yeah. But I do like that point about the whole sniper thing, and I think that's definitely true. There's also the other bit, I'm sorry to keep backtracking here, but there's also the bit where he's looking at Sanchez and El Presidente comes into the office, and it's great because he basically goes to Sanchez, my check, it's half the usual amount. And Sanchez just looks at him and says, you were very quiet when I was like, when I was in prison or whatever. You were only a president for life. And that's so good. It just shows you how much of a puppet he is under Sanchez. And just that, again, that's another scene that just shows the power and the wealth of this man.
That's such a nice line as well, man. That's such a nice sort of like, it's definitely a threat without being like, I'm going to mess you up if you step out of line. It's just like a nice subtle reminder that, hey, you're in my pocket here, Yeah.
Great stuff. So obviously going back then to the ninja fight. So basically, obviously, and Bond gets his ass kicked, doesn't he? He really gets his ass kicked here. So one of them picks up the gun, doesn't he, and they try to shoot Bond. Obviously it doesn't work. Then they have this net they chuck over him and this pole, and he ends up getting smacked and knocked out. And then he comes to, well, first of all, we find out that it was Kwang and the two ninjas, Lottie, and I don't think the other guy's got a name, but anyway, so it's them. And Bond, sort of, when he comes through, he's strapped to this table, isn't he? And he's looking beaten and everything. And then it must be some sort of safe house. I'm not quite sure where it is, but it's obviously close by somewhere in Isthmus. And we see a couple of cars turn up outside. The first one, I think, was Kwang coming up to sort of see him. And then he sort of puts the gun in Bond's hand and it lights up. And he's like, who would have a gun like this? And then Fallon comes in and he said, James Bond, he's British agent, basically gone rogue. And I'm here to ship him back. And he's got this sort of syringe that he's about to stick in Bond. Yeah. But then basically Hella and his army with his tank and all that lot turn up. So how did they know that was going on? What do you think? That
was my question, is how on earth do Hella and his goons find this place? Because I don't know whether it's something I've missed, but I sort of zoomed back a bit to see if there was any clues or anything. I missed it. Maybe I'm being dumb, but I don't know how Hella knows to go there.
Yeah. No, neither do I, unless they must have followed Fallon as well, but then how would they known? And they've had to have done it really quickly because obviously Hella was upstairs in the office and all that when the shot was taken. Obviously some time has passed though since Bond has been taken to wherever he's been taken. And you know what, I reckon the way that they found out is the fact that Sanchez will have people everywhere in Isthmus. He is so powerful. If someone comes to him with information, they're going to be rewarded and rewarded well. So I'm pretty sure that, someone who would have seen something or known something and basically sort of let them know, that something's going down and it's not right type thing. I'm pretty sure something like that must have happened.
I suppose a man like Sanchez, he's probably all those, dudes that he's meeting with, that the deals are going down with, he's going to have them tailed at all times and know exactly where everybody is. That's just what they would do. Exactly, So I guess that's what it is.
That
it's
makes
just
sense,
unspoken. I feel like we did need something though. I feel like we just needed that one shot to suggest that they were about to be followed or something. And where does Hella go and where does he keep his tanks? That's what I mean. Where
he's got a tank garage.
So I feel like you just need a little something in there just to sort of tie those two together, because it does seem a little bit random, doesn't it?
It very much so. Yeah, very much so. So we get this whole sort of scene then when basically he's about to inject Bond, and then the tank obviously fires at the cannon, and then I think one of the ninjas dies straight away, and Kwang tells Lottie to try and escape and don't let them kill you alive or whatever it is.
Don't let them kill you alive.
Take you alive. Kill you alive.
Being killed alive, Chris, that's so brutal.
Oh my goodness me. Don't let them take you alive and what have you. So then Sanchez and Hella and a couple of the other guys turn up, don't they? And Lottie gets a machine gun and manages to shoot a couple, but then gets shot herself. And then they find Quang. And this bit, like, Sanchez is dark here. So Hella grabs his cheek, and Sanchez, who's behind it, basically. And then you just see his mouth, like he's taking the cyanide and all that sort of saliva coming out of his mouth. Yeah. And obviously he's dead. Hella's like cyanide. But then Sanchez just turns around and and then like shoots him twice. He's just so angered and enraged, and I think that's another really, really cool moment. Yeah. What do you think of that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty brutal, isn't it? And I mean, especially that sort of moment where they lift the plank off of the dude that's on top of Bond and pull him aside, and they sort of like lift his head up, and he's just got blood smeared all down the side of his face. It's like, you imagine back in the day, this is the first time you've seen Bond like this. You've never ever seen him get this messed up before. And obviously it gets worse towards the end of the film, but it's one of the things that keeps coming to mind as I kind of watch it and rewatch it is what a kind of strong and brave move it was to go so dark with this. Do you know what I mean? Because it is this is the first time any of that was done. Obviously with Daniel's kind of run, we've got more used to that kind of thing. But do you imagine going from Sir Roger and then within a couple of films going to something like this? That's quite a shocking turn, isn't it?
But then saying that, A View to a Kill is actually really dark as well. If you think about the guy being thrown into the impeller down the thing, you think about Zorin machine gunning all of his troops who are meant to be helping him or whatever, all the miners and stuff. There was a lot of dark stuff in A View to a Kill, a lot more than people think. I think there's dark stuff in quite a few of the films, but it's just the level and License to Kill. And it's the gore. You see a lot more blood. Obviously, like you mentioned, we'll see a few more. Milton Crest's face as well and all that sort of stuff. And there's a lot of gory stuff, isn't there, in the film? But it is brave. It was a brave move. Absolutely. So there we are. So we leave Bond, and he's obviously chained up and beaten, but Sanchez has found him. And obviously Bond has previously come to him in this office saying he's trying to help him. Sanchez thinks, well, obviously these guys were trying to kill me, so Bond must have been trying to stop them. Absolutely, that was an amazing stroke of luck, wasn't it? That went one way, and then it actually worked in his favour in the end. So cool. So we'll catch up with Bond waking up in bed in his lovely black silk pajamas next week, I guess. So cool stuff. So man, I think like I say with these, the more you sort of watch and study the films and watch all the supporting materials and all that kind of stuff, the more interesting it gets. And there was a couple of bits that I picked up last time that I thought were kind of interesting. So number one, this is another film that was affected by a writer's strike. So somewhat like Quantum, there was a writer's strike going on, and Richard Maybaum obviously was co-writing it with Michael G. Wilson, and halfway through he had to stop because of this writer's strike. So basically Mickey G had to complete it by himself. So it's and I believe he gets the writer's credit is like written by Michael G. Wilson, based on a story by, and then that's where Richard Maybaum gets his credit. But I thought that was kind of interesting. And I must admit, I see where obviously what happened with Quantum with that same thing, I see where things could have been fleshed out more with Quantum, and I see where the writer's strike affected that film. Do you know what I mean? Whereas with this, I don't see that. I feel like I was surprised to hear that, basically. It feels like a complete film for me, this one, I think. What are your thoughts? I completely agree. And I think that's down to, obviously, Michael G. Wilson's talent as a screenwriter. Because obviously, being the sort of producer, that's what he gets a lot of credit for. But the fact that he co-wrote quite a few times with Dick Maybaum, that kind of never gets sort of accoladed for doing that sort of type of work. But he obviously is a great screenwriter as well. And I agree. It doesn't look as if it's sort of rushed or missing anything, or stuff like that. So fair play. Props to Mickey G there.
Yeah, and there was something else he mentioned as well, which is kind of where he got the idea, or at least a chunk of the idea for the film, was a Kurosawa film. Now, like that's obviously George Lucas has often cited that dude as an influence on Star Wars with the two droids. But Mickey G was talking about a film called Yojimbo, which was a Kurosawa film, and it was basically about a samurai that goes into town, and there are two like warring factions or two warring families or something like that, and rather than attack attacking them directly, he basically just sets about sowing the seeds of distrust from within. And that's obviously precisely what Bond does here. Like, obviously, in a bit, in the next week, we'll talk about the fact that Bond kind of sows the seed of distrust with Milton Crest, doesn't he? Saying that it's just somebody who's about to arrive in Isthmus tonight who is screwed you over, basically. And that's when Sanchez goes and gets him and things like that. So I thought that was quite interesting. I feel like maybe that's a film we should watch at some point just to see if we can pick up any of the License to Kill influences on that.
Definitely. I'd heard of that before, but I haven't seen the film. But again, that's a clever idea in terms of, you know, the basis behind the film is such a good idea in terms of, you know, befriending the main villain or antagonist and taking them down from within almost. And that hadn't been done in Bond before, and it worked.
And you know what? That is the very definition of a spy, isn't it? That is what a spy does. So this is one of the few occasions you see Bond actually doing some proper spy work. You know, a lot of the time it's sort of full on action and stuff like that. Whereas with, you know, Bond being more of a detective, you know, there's a lead that he's following and then he picks up the next clue, which moves on to the next one. This is proper infiltration, which I absolutely love. And I would love to see more of that, you know.
Totally, man, totally. And I think that whole idea really elevates the film. I think once Bond sort of gets to Isthmus, it seems to flow really, really well. From what we've seen so far, and it's just the fact that, you know, Sanchez almost becomes pally with Bond. It's great. Obviously, that sort of stuff we can talk about the next time, but.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think, I do love, and I would highly recommend anybody who's got, which is most of the people listening, let's face it, if you've got the Blu-rays, DVDs, whatever, with all those extras at home, as we're going through these reviews over these coming weeks, like, do take the time to go and watch those. Obviously, most people are tempted to watch the film along with us as we go, but there is so much interesting stuff in those kind of extras and things like that, especially those deleted scenes. I do love a deleted scene. There's one in particular that just, it's so funny. And John Glenn kind of introduces them all and explains some of the reasons why they might have taken this bit out and so forth. And there's this deleted scene where Bond and Sharky are on a boat and they're kind of like scoping out the wave crest through binoculars, and they see Lupe sunbathing on the deck and stuff. And and John Glenn basically says, "I think we deleted this because of Bond's hat." And I thought, what? And then when it kicks in, Bond is wearing the most ridiculous hat in this sequence, and it's worth looking at just for that. He's got like a white, you know, that sort of white fisherman's hat that people who would have been into Britpop back in the day would have worn. Do you know what I mean? That kind of like floppy fisherman's hat. He's basically got one of those on, and he's like scoping through the binoculars, scoping out the wave crest, and I'm just like, again, whoever was in charge of wardrobe this time round, man, needs a talking to, because that, I mean, good God. Yeah, it's because it makes him look so ridiculous. That's the crazy thing. There's Bond being all serious, like scoping out the wave crest, and then he's just got this, it's like the last hat Bond would ever wear, even if he was in disguise.
Why was it chosen?
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, just for that, like, if you do one thing with these reviews, go and watch that deleted scene, because that is very amusing.
Comedy gold, hey?
Cool stuff. So that about rounds out the review for today's episode. Obviously, we'll be back next week to talk about the last kind of chunk of the film. And obviously the week after that, we'll be doing the listeners' 90-second reviews as well. So get scripting, get thinking about your 90-second review that you might want to leave and contribute to that episode, because it's always a lot of fun. I do love hearing the JBR family speak and give their thoughts. And I'm going to throw something out there. I feel like this one is going to divide opinion a little bit. I think not as much as say A View to a Kill or A Diamonds Are Forever, but I think there's going to be those who say, you know what, this is the best Bond film ever, versus those who are like, you know what, this is why I don't like it, and things like that. I would imagine. But one interesting talking point is John Glenn says this is his best film, the best non-Bond, the best film he ever made. He says is License to Kill. So I think that's an interesting talking point. I think my favourite John Glenn would be For Your Eyes Only, I think. What about you?
Ooh, for me, it'd be either Octopussy or Living Daylights, one of those two.
I would say, do you know what I would say is either For Your Eyes Only or Living Daylights, because I do love both of those. Yeah.
Living Daylights is so good. Like, particularly the first half of it is flawless, pretty much. Yeah, interesting that he names it his sort of favourite, and you can see why, because there is a lot of good stuff. That's what I'm seeing this time around. Like, there's some stuff which I might not have noticed before. Yeah. Obviously, we'll go through it properly after the next episode, but there is a lot of good stuff in License to Kill.
A lot of brave choices as well. Absolutely. Yeah. So yes, like I say, and that pretty much wraps up the review for this week. So, Chris, it is time to revisit the listener trivia question of the day, which was from JBR listener Marlena Orth. So, shall we have a little reminder of what that question was?
Yeah, let's do it.
On the Octopussy poster, can you recall what Octopussy's 8 hands are all doing?
Okay, that is a belter of a question from Marlena, obviously. And it's one of those things that I see this image so often because it's in the banner at the top of the JBR website. And now there's one I can think of off the top of my head, maybe 2 now I've said that. But there's 8 arms to be dealing with here, and I'm going to fall drastically short. How about you? You're the Octopussy man.
Let's go through them.
All right.
I know. I've seen that poster a million times. Obviously, everyone that looks on the Facebook page sees it every day. There are probably people looking at it now. Okay, so so we've got 8 arms. I know some definite ones. What definite ones have you got?
Holding a martini glass.
Yes, that's definitely one.
I feel like there's one holding like a knife.
Yes, like a curved curved knife, isn't there? Yeah.
Do you know definitely what? 2. I think that's all I've got.
Fabergé egg.
Of course.
Definitely one holding a Fabergé egg. There's one I think like playing with like a button on his jacket.
Okay.
I remember one playing with a button. That's 4. What else is there? Is there one? There's one sort of stroking his gun, or like I think he's got a silencer, and there's one kind of like fingering his gun, so to speak. What else is there? 3.
So how many is that so far?
We've got 5, I think. So we've got Fabergé egg, we've got holding the gun, playing with the button, I'm sure is one, holding the martini glass, holding the Fabergé egg. Is there one? What else is there? So the button. What else could she be holding? There's not a cigarette. There's not a cigarette or a cigar because I don't remember any sort of smoke in there. I think one's playing with his hair, maybe, or like in his hair or something like that. I'm just trying to imagine like where they would be if you do them. Is there one like hugging him or something, and one playing with his hair or something? I don't know.
Should we turn it over to Marlena and find out?
Yeah, go on. Let's have a look.
Right, let's do it.
Let's have a listen.
All right, it's Marlena again with the answer to my trivia question, which regarded the poster from Octopussy. Now, I'm pretty sure you could recall probably the hand with the Fabergé egg, the one with the martini glass, and probably also the one with the Oriental dagger. Or I don't know whether it's supposed to be Oriental, but it's sort of a dagger of sorts anyway. So then, her 4th hand is reaching for his gun. Her 5th hand is sort of unbuttoning his dinner jacket, which I'm assuming it's a dinner jacket. Her 6th hand is just touching his chest. Another one is tugging at his bow tie. Another one is tugging away hair behind his ear of sorts. And yeah, those are all her 8 hands. So I hope you got that one. Actually, funny story about that poster. I have it on a mug. So I have one mug with the Octopussy poster and then another Majesty's mug with just George posing with a gun. And he has like, one foot in front of the other and stuff. And I have the Majesty's mug at work because I feel like the Octopussy one is not quite safe for work. So I just have that at home and my Majesty's mug at work, which is quite nice. I always have a bit of Bond with me at my desk. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
So there we have it. You did pretty well there, man. I got 2 out of 8 there. And what did you get? You got 5, I think. 5 of the 8. What was it?
I
6,
think between us, we got 7. The bow tie one that she said, I'd forgotten the bow tie. I think the others were there or therearabouts. But that's a good question, though. It's one of those things that, it's particularly when you know that you've seen it so many times. But great question, Marlena. And I love the fact what she's saying about her mug. She's got like a Bond mug for home and a Bond mug for work. That's brilliant.
As you should. Absolutely. A Bond mug for home and a Bond mug for work. Absolutely. And excellent choices as well for a work mug. Yeah. Majesties with George on there. Sheila will be happy. And then Octopussy for home use. Good stuff. Good to hear from you again, Marlena. Good stuff. Excellent work. And next up, Chris, what's it time for?
It's time for...
Who wrote the score for Live and Let Die? Who played Helga Brandt? How did she die? Who wants to stockpile the water in Bolivia? It's Tommy Trivia.
That's right, it's time for Tommy Trivia. This is where Chris breaks out the 007 Trivial Pursuit deck and he quizzes me on my Bond knowledge. Now, I'm a little bit nervous because it's been so many months since we've done Tommy Trivia. I don't know if I'm rusty. I don't know if I'm going to fall apart or whether I'm going to sail through it. What do you think?
Well, you're normally pretty good, aren't you? I don't think there's many that you sort of don't get. So I'm confident for you, Tom. I'm confident.
Thanks, man.
for you.
I appreciate that.
Okay, so you can get a choice of categories first. Do you like casting characters, the films, vehicles, gadgets and weapons, locations, or crew and behind the scenes?
I'm going to go gadgets and weapons, please.
Ooh, gadgets and weapons. Okay, so the first question is, are you ready? What is the name of the deadly warfare agent?
The deadly warfare agent.
Yeah, this is quite a weird question. Would you like the film?
Yes, please.
That'll probably help. The film is On Her Majesty's Secret Service. What is the name of the deadly warfare agent?
That would be the Omega virus.
Yes.
Very
Virus
nice.
Omega. Lovely. Okay, question 2 is locations. Where is the MI6 safe house where Bond and M interrogate Mr. White?
Where is the safe house? Is that like in a city? Is that what it's asking for?
Yeah.
That's London, isn't it?
Ooh,
no, it's not.
Is it?
Dickhead.
Is it?
I'm thinking of Mitchell's apartment. Sorry, that would be somewhere in Siena, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sienna. Nicely done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll let you have that one.
Thanks, man.
That's all right. Okay, so crew and behind the scenes. Who composed the music to Live and Let Die?
That would be Sir George Martin.
It certainly would. What a soundtrack. I love it. Okay, casting characters. Which character did Famke Janssen play? Oh, extra mark for that lovely accent.
Thank you very much.
Well. Okay, so 2 more to go. This is the films, Tom. How many times, in fact, we discussed this rather pretty recently. How many times does Bond shoot Professor Dent?
It was originally meant to be more, wasn't it? But the censors jumped in and got rid of it. So I think, is it twice?
It is twice.
Yeah.
Well done. Yeah, exactly. And I think it was going to be either 5 or 6, wasn't it? And the censors came in. So there we are. Yeah, he shoots Professor Dent twice. So there was only one more question to get a complete 100% across the board flashing star.
The pressure is on.
Yes. Okay, so this round is vehicles. I'm talking about The Spy Who Loved Me.
Okay.
When the Lotus Esprit turns into a submarine, what happens when Bond trips the light switch?
When Bond trips the light switch?
So when the Lotus Esprit turns into a submarine, what happens when Bond trips the light switch?
Oh, bollocks.
This is a tricky one, isn't
it? When he trips the light switch.
Basically it's one of the gadgets in the car, but what happens when the light switch is tripped?
I'm going to go with the little kind of propeller appears out the back of the car.
It's a good guess, but it's not that one. I'll give you one more guess.
Is it shoots the rocket and gets our mate Caroline?
No, it's not that either, I'm afraid. It's the one where it releases the ink cloud, so that all that massive ink stuff comes out the back. Yeah,
tell me about this light switch. I think that's what's throwing me off a little bit. Where does one find a light switch in a Lotus Esprit?
Well, I think like an indicator switch, is it, or something like that? What does it say? Of
course,
trips the light switch. I think it's when he, like a car light. One of the buttons for the car light does that instead, as opposed to. So with the missile, he's got that little joystick sort of control thing, hasn't he, with a button on it?
Yes.
But with that one, he just presses. It's like a control thingy.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so
right.
there we go. But 80%,
Not
classic,
bad. Not bad.
good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well done,
I
Tom.
haven't quite made the 00 section this week, but
Right.
maybe I'll try again next time they're recruiting, and maybe I'll make it next time. All right,
Definitely.
cool. It is time for It's the Music Cue. That's right. It's time for Guess the Music Cue, where Chris plays us a very short little few seconds of music, and we have to guess what on earth it is from. So again, we haven't done one of these for a while, and usually these can throw me completely, or I can get them. I feel like I either get them straight away or I don't get them. So yeah, I'm intrigued to see what you got for me.
This one is actually one that I played on the last, when we did was it the one when we did the 4th anniversary podcast or something like that? Anyway, the last time we did the quiz games prior to last week, I played this cue. So should we have a listen to it again?
Let's do it. Okay, I remember that one
You're
now.
Smiling,
yeah.
Tom, you're smiling.
Yeah, I think I'm good with that one. I think I'm pretty confident. Famous last words, obviously.
What do you think it is then?
I think that is from The Spy Who Loved Me.
I think you might be right.
Now, I think, is that when Atlantis rises out of the ocean?
No.
Is it something to do with Jaws?
Yes.
Is it when Jaws is at the Sphinx? Or
it's around that scene.
So
something sort of happens.
Is he about to kill Fekesh?
It's a little bit after that. Just a little bit after that. But it's in that location. So what happens?
Oh, is it when Bond and him lock eyes outside the little gate?
That's it. And then when he disappears.
Yeah.
That's
Nice.
it. Yeah, nice one, man.
Cool.
Well done.
Not
Well
bad.
done. Good one. Okay, so I've got a new music cue for this week.
Lovely.
And I think, again, you're going to get the film straight away.
Okay.
But yeah, let's have a little listen and see what you think.
Absolutely. I would wager there's not many people listening to this who won't know what film that is from. But
I think so.
what particular scene is it is another question. So good stuff.
Okay.
We will obviously find out the answer to this week's Tommy Trivia next week. Now, speaking of answers to things,
Yes.
Chris, we had a Guess the Quote round last week, didn't we? So we need to find out what the answer to that one was. So let's hear what last week's quote was.
Okay, so last week's Guess the Quote was, everybody knows we are a peace-loving people.
Bollocks. I haven't quite got it, and I know I'm
Actually,
going to hate myself.
I said a word wrong on that one.
all right,
Let
go
me
on
try it again. I think I did. Anyway. Oh, no, I didn't say it wrong, but I'll say it again. Anyway.
All right, go on.
It's either everyone or everybody. I can't remember now. Anyway, it's one of those two. Everybody knows we are a peace-loving people.
Is it... I know I'm going to hate myself as soon as you reveal the answer, because I know I'm not going to... Is it Octopussy?
No.
Okay.
What sort of people do you think the person is talking about?
I feel like... Is it somebody who is villainous but is pretending that they're not villainous, or am I barking up the wrong tree?
It's kind of like not necessarily, but they're talking about a country. So they're talking about a country of people. They're saying everybody knows we are a peace-loving people, and the people that he's referring to is the country that this person is from.
Yeah, I don't know, man. You've got me this week. Bugger it.
Okay, if I say there are 3 countries involved, there's UK in the middle, there's the US on one side,
and Russia on the other side?
Yes.
See,
and this
that's
guy
what made me
is
think
the
it
Russian.
was Octopussy. Do you know what? I picked up on the Russian bit. I thought it was all of. That's what I originally went for, and why I asked for Octopussy.
That's what I thought why you chose
So
Octopussy.
that means it's got to be Gogol.
It's not Gogol.
It's not Gogol.
No, you got to think Sean.
Oh, I've got to think Sean.
Yes.
Damn it. Who's Russian in Sean's time? Let me just think about that.
It might be
hold on.
Go on,
Is it from Russia with Love?
Is it?
Is it from Russia
No,
with
it's
Love?
not. It's
Is
not
it
from Russia with Love.
Fuck.
I tell you what, space might be involved.
Is it You Only Live Twice?
It is You Only Live
Thanks.
Twice.
My
But do you know
detective
the
skills
scene?
have got me there in the
Do you
end.
know the scene?
I guess it's got to be. Is it like the UN kind of scene where
When they're in that big sort of geodesic dome, and you've got and they're talking about where where the rocket is landing and stuff like that. Yeah,
So
that's the
they're
one.
blaming each other, aren't they? The Russians are blaming the Americans.
That's it, and he's got a big
vice versa.
Russian bushy beard.
Got
yeah,
you.
that's
All
the
right,
guy.
that was a good one, man. Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
It's funny. Something about Russian just was in there somewhere, which is what
Yeah.
for some reason I could hear all of saying it, but
Yeah.
it's obviously not the right one. All right, cool.
No, but you got the Russian idea from it.
Absolutely. Good stuff.
Nice.
Okay, so of course we have a JBR listener quote to answer as well this week. Last week we heard from Mrs. Bootle herself, Jo Mitchell, who had a rather wonderful quote for us. So let's have a little listen to that.
I love an early morning ride.
Okay, excellent quote there. I recognised it. It took me a little while to get there. I recognised
Because
it
of
as
the
soon as it came
accent,
through,
or-
and then what was that? Sorry,
Because of the accent, or
maybe it was. Yeah, but there was something in there that I picked up. I knew the quote from somewhere. How are you feeling? Are you confident?
yeah, strong on this one. The force is strong with this.
Very nice.
I think. Yeah.
I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to say that's A View to a Kill.
That sounds about right. I'm going to say it's in the chateau scene.
Absolutely.
Can you narrow it down any further?
It's when Bond arrives with Tibbet, isn't it? And Jenny Flex is the one who says it, and she welcomed him.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm an early riser myself.
Absolutely. Good stuff.
Awesome.
So, shall we see if we've got it right?
Let's have a listen.
Cool.
Hi, Bond fans. This is Mrs. Bootle back. I've got the answer from last time's quote. I love an early morning ride. I'll say it again if you want a minute, or you can have as long as you want, really, because it's a podcast, so you can pause it. But you've got all the time in the world. Boom! Shh. I'll say it again. I love an early morning ride. Pause. Don't need to. It was Jenny Flex from A View to a Kill. And for a bonus point, what did Sir Roger say back?
I'm an early riser myself.
Oh, the dirty old git. Bye!
Bye-bye.
Okay, look at that. We pinned the tail on the donkey, Chris. We got it right in one, didn't we?
Nicely done. Well, that was down to Joe's brilliant interpretation of Jenny Flex there.
Absolutely. Good
It's
stuff.
quite a well-known sort of bit of dialogue around that bit, isn't it? And the thing with Rog that's sort of around sort of sexy one-liners, I think between you and I think we can pretty much nail most of them.
A
can't we?
sexy one-liner. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
100%. All right, then. That about wraps up today's episode, License to Kill Part 2. Are we going to be back next week with License to Kill Part 3, Chris?
What do you think? Should we?
Yeah, why not? Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. So that'll be the final sort of our review of License to Kill. So that'll be part 3, and then obviously the week after that it'll be over to you listeners. So we want the 90-second listener reviews.
Absolutely.
So it's not a long amount of time. Some people literally all they need is 10 seconds to tell us what they think of a film. Some people get to the 90th second and they haven't even finished. They're like mid-sentence and it suddenly chops out.
I do like those ones. I like the ones where somebody goes super in depth and then they're in the middle of a word and it just cuts out and it almost sounds like we've had enough of it and we've just cut them off, which obviously isn't the case because they get a hard 90 seconds. But yes, so if you want to get involved in that and appear on the listener review episode of License to Kill, go over to jamesbondradio.com. There is the leave a voicemail button on the right-hand side. Click that. You can leave a voicemail through your computer, even through your phone or whatever. You don't need to dial any numbers or anything like that. You can just leave us your 90-second review, and you don't have to worry because you can, if you bugger up, you can re-record it and stuff and all the rest of it, so you can get it just right if you want to. So do get involved because those episodes are always a lot of fun.
And if we can get as many people as well out there, like if you love the film, if you hate the film, whatever your opinion, we'd love to hear from as many listeners as possible because it's super interesting to find out, and it's good because you get an idea of the scale of where the film is within the Bond fan community, which is always interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It is. I always enjoy this for the most part because we have to do less work, don't we? We just basically say, hello, welcome to James Bond Radio, and then all the listeners take over for a bit. That's nice.
That's true. And I do like the ones as well where they start and maybe they get quite in depth, but they've obviously checked the time, and then they start to speed up as they go through their review until it's just like again.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's cool.
Good.
Yeah, so we look forward to those.
Good stuff. Well, until next week, I've been Tom Sears.
I've been Chris Wright.
And JBR will return next Friday with License to Kill Reviewed Part 3. We'll see you then.
We will indeed. See you then, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.